Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. So we start this episode in the middle-ish of combat. We ended last week's episode with Oban being killed by Yasha, and now he has been punished by the Chained Oblivion and given a new, less appealing form, if you will. He's turned into this inky, black tar mess of tentacles, mouths, and eyes. And going into this episode and this part of combat, for some reason, I was under the impression that it was going to be a little bit less stressful, and this new form that Oban has was going to be easier to deal with. I don't know why I thought this. I guess it was just because I forgot that more than half of the party was in critical health condition. And so this combat was definitely high stress and anxiety inducing. Oban the Punished almost single-handedly TPK'd the party. Luckily, however, Juriel, who was once under the influence of Oban, was now free of Oban's grasp and joined the party in taking down Oban the Punished. And after several rounds of back and forth dealing heavy damage to Oban the Punished, Oban unleashing devastating attacks against the party, it ended up being Matt Mercer himself as Juriel delivering the final blow against Oban the Punished. But what makes this moment even more exciting is because this is Matthew Mercer's first How Do You Want to Do This. Now, afterwards, he was a little disappointed that he was the one who got the killing blow on the boss, because he likes to leave those moments to the players. But this moment's special because, again, it's his first time getting it, and it's super hilarious because he wants the cast to get it and not himself. So it's a really awesome moment that I'm sure we'll all remember, and what makes it even cooler, narratively speaking, is that Juriel and Yasha, who were both once under the control of Oban, both got killing blows in his various forms. Once the fight concluded, however, Juriel made a quick escape and disappeared into the walls. It's unclear where she's going, but I'm sure she'll pop up again as the story progresses. And with Oban the Punished destroyed, the party makes their way back up into the main chamber of the church, wondering what happened to Pumat's soul and what the demons are doing. Because last we left off with Pumat, he was holding off the demonic hordes that were coming forth from the abyss. Upon reaching the main chamber of the church, the party was met by many dozens of Righteous Brand soldiers and some of the Crown's Guard within the city. The party taking a quick look around, it would appear that the abyssal creatures have been stopped, and the device that created this rift has been destroyed. But because this whole conflict and situation took place within the capital city of the Empire, the party is now going to have to deal with all of the politics and paperwork that come with the aftermath of such a devastation. And as much as the Mighty Nine would like to continue their journey, they are going to have to wait, as now they are under watch as an investigation is ongoing as to what this cult was hoping to accomplish, if there's more of them, and so on. What is interesting, though, is that now that the cult has been dealt with, more or less, the Kryn assault on the Empire has also ended. Now, at first, that makes it seem like the Kryn dynasty is in on the cultists, and the Kryn were trying to cause a distraction so the cultists could carry out what they were wanting to do. However, upon further investigation, it's more likely that the cultists found out about the Kryn assault on Rexingtrum and changed their game plan to coincide with this assault. But that does raise a few questions. Is someone in the Kryn dynasty a part of this cult? How would the cult know of this information? I'm sure the cult does have eyes everywhere, so there may not be a Kryn operative working with the cultists, but we really don't have any concrete evidence either way. Another question that can be asked about all of this is, now that Oban is destroyed, Oban was this sort of figurehead of the cultists, at least as far as we know. So now that he's gone, who's going to take up his place? Who's going to further the cult's desire to unleash destruction onto this world? We do know that Vence is still around, and it's possible that there are more higher-ups in other societies that may also be involved with the cults. But again, we don't have any concrete evidence to fully support that theory. All we know right now is that Vence is out and about somewhere in this world. And so now, as I said before, the party has to deal with all of the paperwork that's gone with this whole catastrophe. And so the party is led with the righteous brand to the castle here in Rexingtrum to discuss the matters that transpired. Along the way, it's clear that Caleb is nervous to be back in his hometown, and Jester is doing her best to reassure him that the party is here for him. But not even Jester's reassuring words will shake Caleb's fear of being discovered by the Cerberus Assembly. And now that the party has been brought to the castle, they are put into a waiting room, so to speak, before their audience with the Prime Arbiter. In this waiting chamber, the party had some time to discuss matters amongst themselves, mainly catching Yasha up on everything the party has been doing, catching her up on Ford's voice change, catching her up on why Caleb is so nervous to be here, and then Yasha also began to talk about her past and her relationship with Oban. She talked about how she didn't know that this Angel of Irons was actually the Chained Oblivion, and it would appear that Oban wasn't entirely sure himself either, since in Oban's last moments he referred to the Angel of Irons as the Angel of Irons, and not Tharizdun or the Chained Oblivion. And after some time passed with the party discussing what they were going to bring up to the Prime Arbiter, they were then brought into the throne room of King Bertrand. Now I think that caught everyone off guard because we were led to believe they were just going to be meeting with the Prime Arbiter, but that was not the case. In this throne room we had several high-ranking officials, including King Bertrand himself, Oliver Schreiber, who is acting as sort of the hand to the king. There was Sidnok Truskin, who is himself the Prime Arbiter. Udala Fawn, the head curator of the Cobalt Soul, also holds a seat on the King's Council. And then there were also a few familiar faces present: Allura, Ormid, Ludinus Deleth, and Trent Ikathon. So let me just try to take a minute and explain how crazy and intense this moment is. We have the party who was led to believe that they were just meeting with the Prime Arbiter to discuss what happened at the church. That's pretty stress-free. The party just has to make sure they got their facts all set in stone before they meet with the Prime Arbiter. But then they are led into the throne room of King Bertrand. Now this is an interesting contrast to way back when the party was led into the throne room of the Bright Queen, so it's just similar feelings are coming back. A similar intensity of being in the presence of such powerful figures. And the party desperately has to try to not mess up, as they may be executed, seen as traitors, or just thrown in prison. And there are some massive characters in this throne room. We obviously have King Bertrand, who we haven't really seen much of this campaign. He's just been this looming sort of figurehead of the Empire, but we're not really sure what his whole deal is. Then we have Sidnok, who is the Prime Arbiter. Then there's Udala Fawn, who is the head curator of the Cobalt Soul, who Bo is probably going to try to impress or maybe feel intimidated about, so there's that level of anxiety for Bo. We have Allura, who is sort of a third-party neutral in this whole thing from the Tal'Dorei Council. Then we have Ormid and Ludinus, both members of the Cerberus Assembly, and Ormid knows a little bit more information than maybe the rest of the people on the council, as the party did meet with Ormid in the previous episode and told Ormid of Vence's betrayal and allegiance to this cult. Ludinus, who is the leader and figurehead of the Cerberus Assembly, seemingly doesn't know anything about Vence's involvement in the cult. And we as the audience and the party don't know if Ludinus is involved at all. So there's that layer of intensity and anxiety, since Ludinus may know everything that's been going on since the beginning of the campaign. And then, to top it all off, we have Trent Ikathon here, who is also a member of the Cerberus Assembly, and he's the one person that Caleb was desperately trying to avoid while being in Rexingtrum, since we know that Trent is responsible for Caleb's very tragic backstory and upbringing. So just all of these different elements are making this whole situation so intense and so daunting for the party as they enter this room and try to give their case to the king. I hope all of that made sense. I'm just trying to explain the magnitude of this moment that the party is walking into. And so during this meeting, Caduceus at first tried to explain his theories about what was going on, but he was quickly shot down by King Bertrand and even insulted Caduceus' intelligence. So already the king is on our bad side. But then Bo decided to take the lead on giving all of the evidence and facts that the party has encountered. And I know I say this a lot, but it really just goes to show how much Bo has grown since we first met her in episode 1. She has this new air of responsibility about her now that she even is an expositor herself. And I'm sure she's trying to score some points with Udala Fawn, since she is the head curator of the Cobalt Soul, which is basically the leader, so to speak. But as the discussion went on, there was just, again, so much tension, because we didn't know if there were any other people on this very council that are involved with the cult. And then the party were almost branded as traitors, since they did tell the king of their involvement with the Kreen dynasty. The party brought up how the Kreen just want their beacon back, and Ludinus brought up that, well, they have no more use of this beacon. So perhaps if they give the beacon back, they can talk about ending this war peacefully. Which was interesting coming from Ludinus Deleth, since I was under the assumption that he may be a part of the cult, or he may have been involved with starting this war to begin with, because he may have wanted the beacon for himself. So it's nice to see that he's willing to give up this beacon in order to end the war. Now, of course, that could all be a front, because we know that these Archmages are very clever and very intelligent. They're obviously not going to reveal their true intentions in such a place. They're going to wait, say what's favorable, given the company present, and then carry out their motives in secret. But as it stands, it looks like the Empire is trying to find a way to end this war peacefully, and they may finally have that opportunity, as King Bertrand has instructed the party to send a message to the Bright Queen, telling her that they will begin to discuss a peaceful resolution to this war, and the king is willing to give their beacon back. So now that we know that the Empire wants to end this war, the only thing left is for the party to travel back to Xhorhas and meet with the Queen to tell her of this possibility of ending this war. And once all of the details were finished, King Bertrand ended the meeting. However, the party is not able to leave quite yet, as they are now being put under Ludinus Deleth's watch. The party, again, is just going to have to wait until this investigation is fully concluded. And so after the meeting was initially over, there was a sense of relief as all of the tension seemed to melt away, since a peaceful resolution is now on the table, and the party is safe from any accusations of being traitors. The meeting definitely went a lot better than it could have gone. However, as the party was making their leave from this chamber, Trent Ickathon approached the party, saying how they've come a long way from being sellswords and pit fighters, because Trent does remember seeing the party all of those episodes before, when the party competed in the arena in Zadash. Trent was impressed with how far the party has gone, looking at each of them, taking them all in. And then he stopped at Caleb and looked at him intensely and said, "Especially you, Bren," calling Caleb by his true name. And so this obviously tells us that Trent knows who Caleb is, and this was Caleb's absolute worst fear, was being found out by the very man who caused so much pain and destruction in his life. And that's where Matt decided to end the episode, leaving us with that intense moment. But now, what does this mean for the party and for Trent? Obviously, Trent isn't going to do anything open and in such a crowd, so I'm curious to see what he's going to do. Maybe he'll try to isolate Caleb or invite him to a meeting to discuss what's happened, or maybe he'll try to assassinate Caleb. We have absolutely no idea. This Trent is pure evil, intelligent, literally anything could happen, which makes this even more stressful for not only the audience, but for Caleb and the rest of the party. But we're just going to have to wait until next week to find out more. And with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions during that episode. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.